What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Big Blue in the Bronx YouTube channel. It's been like a month since we've been live, but of course, we were away overseas. But nonetheless, we are here to recap the first half of the New York Yankees 2024 season with a very good panel that we have. To my right on the screen is Mr. Gary Sheffield Jr. of Yankees Unloaded. Bottom of me will be my brother, Luca, from Knicks Cast. And of course, as usual, we have Dylan Backer from Fireside Knicks, and he does a lot of other good stuff over there as well. So I'm going to pass it around the panel to start. Your thoughts, well, everyone's individual thoughts on the first half of the Yankees 2024 season. We're going to a load of subjects, so I'll start with Gary Sheff.
What's up, fellas? I think a lot of us would agree that it was a nice start to the season, but we all thought Anthony Volpe, I think, would be a lot different than what we're seeing. And if your top prospect is hitting 220, and he's been hitting, I would say, for the past month and a half, well under 200. I know a lot of people were excited that he hit 20 homers last year. I was excited, but his progression is just not where it needs to be. And so now it leaves us in a position where the Yankees have to find offensive options, and that's going to come via the trade market. It's not seemingly coming from Verdugo, right? So right now we're in a situation where it's a waiting game for Brian Cashman. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know how many people trust that Cashman's going to pull the trigger on an aggressive trade. He usually goes half-baked, and we're in wait-and-see mode.
Definitely. Luca?
Yeah, first thoughts, I got to agree with Chef. We had a nice start to the season, but as of the last month or so, it's been kind of what should I call it? I'm not going to say collapse because, well, we fell out of the first place in the AL East. We're still in contention for it, obviously, but it seems like the regular Yankee summer collapse that happens around in June and beginning of July, mid-July, but it's just annoying to watch. And, yes, Gary also brings up the Anthony Volpe stuff. He's regressed. So is Alex Verdugo. So is a lot of players, Marcus Stroman included. And, I think as Chef said as well, the Yankees need to have a big deadline. Cashman can't go into this half-baked. And I also think that the manager has also been the problem in Aaron Boone. And, it's the same old story with him. There are times where he knows how to manage to get out of a game, where there's times where he can't manage to get out of a wet paper bag. And then you have all these mental errors that this team makes. You have the Verdugo play, you have the Volpe errors, you have Gleyber Torres, who's been horrible this entire season. But it's just another typical Yankees year, but they got to solve this. If they're going all in this year with Juan Soto, obviously he's a free agent next year, you got to go balls to the wall at the trade deadline, in my opinion. All in, you want to go balls to the wall.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the trade deadline throughout the show. What's up to Daniel Berry Sports? Anyone tuning in on Twitter, and of course, LA Yankee King. Dylan, your first thoughts on the first half of the Yankee season? Dylan, I don't think we can hear you.
I'm so sorry. My mic was muted. That is my fault. That was my fault. My microphone was muted. I'm so
no problem, man.
Sorry. But anyway, like I was saying, I'm first off, it's good to be back on here with you guys. It's very exciting. It's been a while since we've done a stream, but excited to be on here. I wish the Yankees were doing better though than what we got to talk about today. 8-18 since June 15th. That's not ideal. If anything, they're very lucky to be only one game back from the Orioles in the AL East. They're lucky that they've been kind of slumping at the exact same time. But, as Gary mentioned, Volpe isn't just the only issue. Obviously, he's one of the bigger stories because, you thought at the start of the year that he was going to have a good second year in the big leagues. He had that big hitting streak. He was hitting 280 at one point, but he's not the only one. You got Verdugo slumping. He's hitting like under 200 for the better part of the last month. Gleyber Torres hasn't been good all year. You haven't gotten much production out of third base really at all. I mean, DJ LeMahieu has been unplayable. You can't really play Oswaldo Cabrera every day either, so you kind of have to replace third base at the deadline now, but I really don't know where they're going to go with that. And that's what worries me because, as time is going on, it feels like some of the options are starting to come off the table. I know recently Ryan McMahon recently came off the table pretty much. They kind of just said, yeah, they're not going to trade him. So that's a guy I wanted the Yankees to go get. but now that seems like that dream is dead. I know Isak Paredes was mentioned in some rumors the other day. That could be intriguing, but I also am pretty doubtful that the Rays are going to trade in the division with us. So I'm not really confident about that one either. Some guys that maybe could be on the table, maybe like Luis Rengifo out of the Angels, maybe even Jazz Chisholm from the Marlins. Those are some guys I feel like we're going to end up looking at a lot over the next couple weeks. But bottom line, they got to make a move one way or the other. They can't trot out this roster the rest of the way through and expect some crazy good results in the playoffs. Yes, you have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, but you need more around them. And right now, they don't have enough. They need to do something. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, definitely. So, speaking of Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, both were all-stars. We'll start on that, and then we'll go into more of the negative topics. But obviously, and I was campaigning since last summer for this. The Yankees didn't make the move. They actually stayed pretty pat at the deadline and acquired 2 pitchers, and it was pretty much the big nothing. Um, but the Yankees traded for Juan Soto. Everyone was elated. Everyone was so happy. Um, and Aaron Judge is having an unbelievable season himself. I'm going to say, for just a beginner into the topic, and I'll start with Dylan this time, the impact that Juan Soto has made, not only on this baseball team, and I get it, we've had some struggles, but also on the fan base as well, and how they've come to accept him.
Right. I mean, Juan Soto, when he came over, a lot of fans were already excited as it was, superstar talent, all that stuff, very young kid, awesome player. He's only been more than advertised since he came here as well. He's been playing like an MVP candidate. He was good in the All-Star game representing us as well. I mean, the fan base is loving him already, and it's only been half the season. The fan base, if anything, wishes that the rest of the guys around him would play better to kind of convince the man to stay long term. Obviously, you could just hand him a lot of money, and maybe that'll be enough to bring him back, but you want to also make yourself a competitive product. And if the Yankees are going to keep doing this collapse every year and just go nowhere, they look unattractive, and you don't want to do that in the possible 1 year you have Juan Soto. You want to go all in. You want to make the moves to win this year. Obviously, you want to be able to win in the future as well, but it's no guarantee that Juan Soto comes back. So you got to make the moves to win right now. Obviously, if you get in the playoffs, you have just as much of a chance as anybody else. And I'm not saying that they're not going to make the postseason, but if they trot out like I said before, if they trot out the roster they've been bringing out there the past month or so, I don't think this team's going anywhere. They have to make a change. They have to. I can't be seeing DJ LeMahieu getting at bats every day. I can't see Alex Verdugo playing left field every day, honestly. I mean, it sucks that I have to say that now because I thought he was going to be fine for this year, but he's been terrible for the past month. So maybe now we need to change there as well. First base had been a question all year, but maybe Ben Rice will actually be something good. So that's at least a positive right there that we can at least sit on. But everything else, there's kind of been holes everywhere. I mean, the past month has exposed a lot of problems that this team has. Obviously, no team is really perfect. Every team kind of has a flaw in some way, but I really think that for those first 2 months, we thought maybe this was really the team. This was the year. We didn't really need to do anything else. The Soto move was enough. Seems like that wasn't true, though. Seems like they need a lot more. The starting pitching has kind of faltered a little bit, which is kind of weird because Garrett Cole came back, so you thought it would be stronger, but it hasn't been. They've fallen flat a little bit. I didn't expect the pitching to be smooth all year, but it got to a point where every single starter was just struggling. At least the bullpen is turning it around lately, but they got to get help there as well. They don't really have a good closer or a setup guy. I mentioned this about Clay Holmes too. I don't know if you can really have him be the closer if the defense behind you is going to be as shaky as it's been. He's a ground ball pitcher, which is perfectly fine, but I think maybe that would be a little bit better in a setup role. Now we've gone from a point where we needed a third baseman and some relief arm in some way to now possibly needing not only a third baseman, but maybe an outfielder and now a closer. I mean, the problems keep coming up, and I just want some consistency from this team. That's what I want. And in terms of Juan Soto in particular, he's done everything he can. I mean, he's playing through a hand injury, and he's still playing well. I mean, I know he had that little slide through the little 2 weeks entering July or whatever, but it's Juan Soto. He's been good all year. If there's anyone who has an excuse to have a little slide, it's him. When the rest of the guys in the lineup have been slumping all year, you can't defend that. I know I can't. So that's what I think about all this.
Yeah, definitely. Juan Soto this year, 23 homers, 101 hits, 66 ribbies, 5 stolen bases, and a 295 batting average. And again, an all-star nod, as we saw on Tuesday. Luca, the impact of Juan Soto on this team, this city, fan base, however you want to put it.
True superstar. another superstar added to next to Aaron Judge, which obviously, we thought Giancarlo Stanton was going to be. He's obviously injured and often injured, but Soto's been, you know, above expectations. He's been phenomenal, and he gets on base a lot. That's what I think a lot of people saw, or at least a lot of people expected when he came to the Yankees, and they thought right of it. So Soto gets on base a lot. He has a lot of power. He's like almost truly like a 5-tool player, and him and Judge at the top of the lineup with some real help could really do some damage. It's not like Soto and Judge don't do damage already. It's the problem with the Yankee lineup is you could walk Soto, you could walk Judge, but who are you really facing after that? That's the problem. But that should not, really cover up the impact of what Soto's done or what Judge has done this season. They've both been phenomenal. Both are MVP candidates.
Yeah, definitely. And they haven't had a consistent leadoff hitter because it was Glaber to start, then it was Volpe, then Ben Rice for a little bit, but they haven't really landed that. But nonetheless, Chef, your thoughts on the impact of Juan
Fellas,
Soto?
I'm going to be honest. Since we cover the Yankees for a living, this is what we do. The Yankees needed talent, and Juan Soto was that talent. And I will say, the Yankees usually say no to talent. Let's be honest here. Over the years, the Yankees have been looked at as a team that they get hyper involved in analytics, and they don't necessarily go for the big name, but they're going to go for somebody to try and do more with less. Okay. We said no on Bryce Harper. Didn't even get involved. We didn't make an offer on Manny Machado. And it was always for, okay, we'll put Brett Gardner out there for one more year. We'll go out there and try to hit homers. We'll stack our lineup with right-handed bats. Now, a lot of that was analytics driven, but the Yankees have started to go towards the middle because we all have to remember analytics can be used as a tool to win. Okay. That's what everyone's supposed to be doing with these numbers. But the issue was that the Yankees got so far down the line with analytics. And now it seems like, okay, bringing in Juan Soto was a step in the right direction where we still need talent. You can't just have numbers and expect to spit out an output. It doesn't work that way. So the Yankees right now, in having brought in Juan Soto, it was a step in the correct direction where you say, okay, now we've got a guy behind Aaron Judge and we can expect him to be pitched to. And the numbers suggest exactly that. They're putting up monster numbers. But what is outside of that? And what we're seeing is that the Yankees outside of our organization, that's the only way we're bringing in talent right now. And development in our talent has to improve. Otherwise, we really can't expect to win. I know we all want to win a World Series. That would be amazing. It would be great for all of our channels to grow. We want to be a part of an October run, but we all have to remember something, is that if guys like Volpe and Peraza and Cabrera come out here and give us the type of production that we've seen, and we have to make excuses that they're still young players, but then we look across the way at guys like Gunnar Henderson, who also are the same age, who have the same lack of experience. All the excuses that we make for our own players, we don't make for them, right? So we have got to look ourselves in the mirror and say, we either need to develop or we need to spend even more money. So I don't know what the solution is exactly. I'm not the general manager of the Yankees, but I know right now we're kind of in that middle ground, not developing talent. We're saying that we believe in some dudes in the minor leagues. B-Boss, we call him up. We didn't give him an ounce of playing time, didn't even let him pinch run. Not sure what that's about, but the Yankees right now seem to be believing in their system. And then simultaneously, if you actually take a look at the field, you don't see their system out there. So it's disappointing.
Very much disappointing. It's really kind of been the story the last few years with the Yankees and their whole development system. And, I was told, I think it was last year or the year before, oh, yeah, it's going to get better because you got this guy, you got Volpe, you got Peraza, and, oh, that was the old Yankees. But I'll say this before we move to more of an Aaron Judge-based thing and also a Juan Soto impact is I think the huge problem with the Yankees is not really, well, yes, it is also the players that they draft and, they develop and they don't turn out. But I feel like a lot of their front office members, and this is factual, this goes back to 2022, where I saw a huge graphic of front office members in the Yankee system compared to front office members in the system of the Astros. And I think they fired the GM after they won the World Series, but I digress in terms of that. And all these Yankees front office guys, Damon Oppenheimer, Kevin Reese, this guy, that guy, they've all been with the Yankees since like 2005 and even like 98, 97, something like that. Gene Afterman, all these different cats that are in the front office, and the development system just doesn't get better. And not to talk football for 2 seconds, but I saw that with the Giants and they made changes. So I think it's a lot of the old heads in the front office. And again, that's Brian Cashman's work a little bit alongside Mike Fishman, who runs the analytics department. But nonetheless, obviously, we talked about protection for Aaron Judge for a number of years. Juan Soto seems to build up that protection, especially now with Giancarlo Stanton on the IL, who we hope to return soon. We are also witnessing another great season from Aaron Judge as he broke his home run record that he had 2 years ago before the All-Star break, or it may have been a couple of years ago, but nonetheless, 34 homers, 306 average, 85 ribbies, 5 stolen bases, and he had a horrible start to the season and has soon winded it up. Do you think he does this? And I'll start with Gary. Do you think he does? First of all, it is remarkable, number one. Number two, do you think he does this without Juan Soto on the team? Because me personally, I don't.
No, so you saw the last week the way they're pitching him, and that's with Juan Soto. They're just flat out not pitching to the guy, and that's fair because when Baltimore pitched to him, there was damage. It was a problem. And when they didn't, the Yankees realized, we've got Juan Soto, of course, a formidable bat, but what comes after that? And really good teams, you might be able to go hide and say, well, we'll just pitch to Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, right? Because we're Oakland. But teams like the Baltimore Orioles who know these playoff series and the difference between winning a division and not could be 1 or 2 games, they're not going to let us get away with that. So the Yankees right now, and I know it's super fun and cool to talk about Aaron Judge, and I want to talk about Aaron Judge and his numbers. I really do because it's spectacular. But we also have to remember what the actual goal is, and it's to be a great team. And when you're like the Los Angeles Angels, and they had 2 of the greatest baseball players to ever live on the same team hitting back to back, they were hitting 2 and 3, exactly what we've got right now. And you see the results they don't just come like that. It's not, this is not basketball. This is not where you can have LeBron James and Kyrie Irving and expect to do something out there. This is baseball where if Carlos Rodon doesn't return to form, we have no chance of winning a title, right? If we don't recover that type of arm, we have no chance of winning a title. If Nestor Cortez isn't able to finish the season strong, which he hasn't the last few years, we have no chance of winning a title. So there are all types of ways and all types of factors with this team, frankly, that I am just hyper focused on. And frankly, I don't know if it's inside our organization. I really don't. A lot of us right now are talking about the trade deadline. It's in 2 weeks. I know all of us are going to be covering it. All of us are going to be talking about it. And the part that's really alarming to me is the fact that we've got people at Yes, and they're partially tapped in. They're not just getting the information straight from Brian, but they have been discussing the fact that the Yankees might have a hard time on the trade market because a lot of teams are in the mix, right? And the fact that Yes is kind of echoing this statement that it's going to be hard on the Yankees in the trade deadline, it makes me feel like they're kind of bracing us for impact on a potentially underwhelming deadline. Now, of course, that's not set in stone. The deadline hasn't passed. I know, Dylan, I've seen you guys covering in some trades that could potentially be happening, but frankly, you got to pull the trades. You can't just talk about them. You can't say we're kicking the tires. Frankly, all that matters is what actually gets done, who we trade away, who we bring in, or who we call up. So I'm super excited about Aaron Judge. I always will be. He's a phenomenal Yankee. He's a future Hall of Famer. Juan Soto, we still don't know if he's part of our future. We have no idea what Hal Steinbrenner is going to do. I know we all laugh about it on Twitter and say, hey, back up the Brinks truck, write him a blank check. But that's not up to us, unfortunately, fellas, because one thing is for certain about Hal Steinbrenner, this is what he does know. If they don't bring back Juan Soto, it'd be a joke. But we would still cover this team. We would still love this team. It's unfortunate, but that's the situation that we're in. So are we in a position where he's a must-have player in New York? No, because the Yankees product right now, based on the talent that's on the field, it seems like the Yankees are cool that being the Yankees. We're still the Yankees, regardless of what happens out here. So hopefully that changes. I don't know what you guys feel about it, but until that actually is happening, between the lines, I can't just give it up to this team and say, hey, why doesn't this free agent want to come play with us? It's almost like trying to get people to come to the Lakers in like 2012, right? Is like, hey, we're still the Lakers, right? Kobe won with us 3 years ago. Like, why wouldn't you want to come play here? That doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is what you're building. And the Yankees right now have too many holes they have got to fill. And once they fill those, we can start talking about ourselves. I just saw Nestor Cortez said teams were jealous of us. Jealous of what now? What are we jealous of? We should be jealous of winning, not wearing pinstripes, not playing in New York, not having the best fan base in the world. None of that stuff. Like, all that stuff is great, but the ultimate goal is to win. So yeah, I'm hoping that we see something transpire over the next 2 weeks, and until that happens, I guess we'll just be sitting here twiddling our fingers.
Of course. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that Nestor tweet. Like, I get it, you're trying to hype up the fan base and stuff like that, but after the season, after the little collapse, for lack of better words, the struggling this team has had, and the way it's gone the past few years, I wouldn't necessarily. And you had your people saying, "Oh yeah, go Nestor," and this, that, and the other thing. I'm just like, can we just like show it on the field, please? Like, okay, I'll take the tweets, but let's show it on the field. But
I want to make it seem like we don't like Nestor Cortez because we didn't like the tweet. It's not the case. Love Nestor Cortez. Think he's everything that the Yankees need. And when he's going right, I mean, the Yankees they're full steam ahead. It's what we need. It's the same thing with Marcus Stroman. He's in the exact same spot. But again, Alex, if you're in a situation right now where you're sitting there still talking about, hey, we're the Yankees and we won 27 championships, we're never putting up 28. That's not the way we're going to go win. We're going to win because we're the most formidable and well-built organization that year. That's the way this all works. It doesn't have to be fair. It has to be, it is sports. And you guys cover New York sports for a living, and you guys have seen it is hard to win a championship in all these sports, but the Yankees have to make it look easier than once every 15 years to call it jealousy, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Because right now, I mean, before I get to a couple of chats, and then we go to Luca and Dylan. I've said it. I said it. I think when the Yankees were struggling right at the beginning of the year, the Yankees, the Cowboys, until further notice. That's just my personal opinion, because they're in a similar position. But Armin says, I know he sent me something on the Yankees with Crochet, which we'll definitely talk about. Dodgers are heavily in on Crochet and Luis Robert Jr. If fans want it bad enough, Soto will be re-signed. Nestor now showing on the mound. I agree with that. That will work with the Yankees. Have that luxury and play who Volpe needs to find a way. And yes, and teams will play hardball more than ever with Cashman. Ben Rice is also great. Volpe is not good. He's average. He's no Jeter. Well, I agree. He's no Jeter, but a lot of people when he came up were kind of trying to sell us that, if you will. I would offer Soto 16, 72, $720 million. I don't know what that is in mathematics, so I have to do that. But
it's a lot of money.
Volpe needs to go back
be older
to
than Biden by the end.
He doesn't need to be Jeter. Yes, the Nationals and Royals have won a championship more recently, and that's sad. That is sad. But Luca, your thoughts on the Aaron Judge aspect and anything else we just talked about?
Yeah, listen, Aaron Judge is a superstar. We all know that. I don't think he puts up the numbers. Again, no disrespect to Judge, the player. I don't think he puts up the numbers if Soto's not here, because it's similar to 2022. How can Judge's stat line repeat itself? Like, his 2022 stat line, I'm not saying it's an outlier. I'm saying he had a great season, 62. Like, how can he do that again? You have one of the best, two hitters in all of baseball in Soto, and he's a superstar at that. But to go into Gary's point about the Yankee brand and all that, the Yankees right now are just a brand. The Yankees, they say, championship or bust, but they always have fallen short of the last couple of years, and that's been my problem. Us fans have, lived through the George years. We have the higher expectations, and, we know George wasn't perfect, but Hal is pretty much sitting in his chair right now, basically not giving a crap, in my opinion. And I think he's just very blasé, nonchalant, as he's allowed Brian Cashman and Boone to do their thing. But even regardless of that, it's like the Yankees, and I'm not saying, we got to rehire Joe Girardi, but the minute they fired him, the Yankees started to regress. 2018, they lost in the divisional round. 2019, they lost in the ALCS in game 6. In 2020, they lost in divisional series, so they took another step down. In 2021, they lost in the wild card. In 2022, they were swept by the Astros. In 2023, they missed the playoffs entirely. So we really haven't been to the World Series. And I'm not saying Joe Girardi is the answer, but I'm just saying this whole thing, this organization has taken a turn for the worse since 2017. And it's all factors involved, in my opinion. So, we're praising, as Wampai Duel mentioned, the Royals have won recently. The Nationals have won recently. The Astros obviously have won a multitude of championships recently. The Atlanta Braves have won recently, who previously had not had a World Series since 1995. So just a lot of organizations, I think, in my opinion, are ahead of the curve, and the Yankees are just behind the curve, if you know what I'm saying. They're behind the times, as Alex mentioned, with all the staff hirings and all that. They're not hiring a lot of new people. So at the end of the day, it's up to the big man on campus, Hal above. Is he going to resign Soto? And a good buddy of mine who comes to my job, he's like, he's a Mets fan actually, and he says, how can Hal pay Cole, Stanton, Judge, and Soto at the same time? It's possible, but will Hal do it is the question.
Easily possible. Look at the revenue. We make more than $200 million more than any other team. That's including the Dodgers. By the way, Luca, I think it's really important what you just brought up. You just mentioned the Los Angeles Dodgers. You mentioned the Braves. What is it exactly that we call the Dodgers? Don't we call them? Don't a lot of fans call them chokers? Isn't that what they call them? Isn't that ironic that a team that won just 3.5 years ago during the shortened COVID season is considered a choker? But what are we? Okay. Now I love this organization, right? I have family who played in this organization. We love this team. But to sit here and suggest that the Yankees are something more than that, what are we? Okay. We're winning a lot of regular season games. And this is something that, Michael K has brought up. And it's a good point, is that the Yankees machine wins a lot of regular season games. And that's great. Okay. Fireside Yankees, right? Alex, Luca, myself, we're all going to do fine. Teams winning a lot of regular season games. People are going to watch our stuff. Okay. There's plenty of interest in this team. We have our family loves this team. Okay. So to sit here and think that we're in trouble because we're not winning World Series championships. No, but we're asking for more than that. Okay. It's not, we just want more for this team. And in order to get more, we need to do something that we're not doing, frankly. Okay. And you brought up the point of that the Giants and a lot of these organizations, they had some of the same faces around for 15 years, got no results. And then all of a sudden you start removing these faces and you start seeing results. The Lakers had the same faces in there and said, hold on a second. We need to pass the baton. They pass the baton. Anthony Davis comes in, rest is history. They win a title, right? So my whole point here is that these organizations can be great, all-time great. We could talk about if Hal's going to bring back Soto, all this stuff, right? But Hal has brought back players before. Hal went and gave DJ LeMahieu a contract to which we all, for the most part, right? Some people are outliers, but most of us were like, DJ LeMahieu is our most consistent bat. He's a contact bat. We need it, right? So he wrote a check, frankly, that he shouldn't be getting right now. And he's done so with multiple players in the past, outside of him. He gave Carlos Rodon $165 million, right? So it's not like he's being cheap, but something needs to be different. It's not necessarily that Hal is just flat out cheap. No, Hal is just not running the ship the way it needs to be run. They have said plenty before, well, how much money do you need us to spend? And we say, well, clearly you need to spend more money to win because you're spending $300 million and the guy you hired in Brian Cashman can't get it done with the budget that you gave him. So you either need somebody else in there who can use the budget that you see fit, or you need to raise the budget. And that's where guys like Dylan who come up with the trades, that's where we come in, right? That's where we come in and we say, well, if you're going to do it your way, look at your results. Maybe you should try our way. And that is a more aggressive brand of baseball for the Yankees.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I forgot the point I was going to go to, but going to the chat here a little bit before we get to Dylan. Hire Don Mattingly. I know a lot of fans have wanted that. I don't know that I would particularly want that, but nonetheless. And also to Gary's point about spending, it's asset management. and where you're putting that money. How you're putting money into this player, and some of it just hasn't worked out. That would have him under contract till he's 41. I've seen that it would be 45 mil a year. What LI would offer. The Yankees went woke. Can I say that here? I don't think they went woke. I think they just more about a brand. They're more of a marketing team, like a selling point, and just like 27 championships. Yeah, no, it's a payroll. Just do it. Money's going to come off the books. It's been a while since we've been a great regular season team. Well, I would like to take some of that and put it into the playoffs. DJ had a great batting average before he got paid. I'm pretty sure he won a batting title. That was 2020, the COVID season. What up, fellas? A long time no see. What's up to Jacob? And DJ was always healthy before he got paid. Yeah, and then now it seems like the script has flipped in a not a good way. But Dylan, your thoughts on Aaron Judge's season so far, and also any of the stuff that we've been recently discussing.
Right. So to start with Aaron Judge, I mean, I'm running out of adjectives to describe just how good he is at baseball. I mean, the guy is insane. We already know this by now. I don't even need to go into a deep dive of it. But to really see his true impact, you can look back at last season when he got injured, and the conversation around the team was constantly just, when is Aaron Judge coming back? When is Aaron Judge coming back? When Judge comes back, we'll be good. That didn't happen. And the reason is because other teams have cracked the code on the Yankees. They've figured out last year to just pitch what Gary said, just pitch around Judge and make the other guys beat you. They didn't beat you. And then this year, it's a similar formula. Just walk Soto, walk Judge, and then make the other guys beat you. They're not beating you again. They lead all of baseball in double plays hit. They're one of the worst teams with runners in scoring position. They're doing all this stuff wrong, and that's why they're not winning games. Anytime they do pitch to Judge, good things are happening because, well, Aaron Judge is just a freak. I mean, the guy is insane. You know what I mean? So we already know how good of a player he is. I mean, I have his jersey right behind me on this chair. He's an amazing player. Love watching the guy play. But when all I get to see is him walk 4 times a game, that sucks because I know the other guys aren't going to do anything. And that's why I really am emphasizing the need for changes and why they can't keep trotting out this same lineup. Obviously, we know the rest of the guys are just struggling, period, and that's why. But another reason is because these guys like Soto and Judge need protection. They don't have any. Like we were saying at the top, they don't have a leadoff hitter. They've been one of the worst guys in the cleanup hole this year. The bottom of the lineup has been just a complete black hole. Third base has been non-existent. They have holes everywhere except for Soto and Judge. That's a problem. Like Gary said too, when the Angels had Trout and Ohtani, same situation. They weren't successful at all. I don't even think they made the playoffs with those two on the same team at all, which is just, that's really unfortunate in itself. And you really don't want to see the Yankees waste Aaron Judge's prime by not giving him some help. You already have Juan Soto right now and might only have him for 1 year. You got to get these guys help. They can't do it on their own. Like we were saying before, it's not basketball where you can expect one guy to take over a game and just carry you to playoff wins and stuff like that. That doesn't work in baseball. And other teams have proven that. Just pitch around those guys, make the other guys beat you, and you'll beat these guys. I mean, 8-18 over the last month doesn't speak for itself. It's obvious why that's happening. The numbers don't lie to you. And just overall, with the type of brand the Yankees are putting on right now, I mean, I want to see these guys be more aggressive. I mean, and have some more urgency too, because every time I see these guys slump and in the post-game pressers, they're like, oh, we're going to turn it around soon. It's about how we respond to it, this, that. Show me. I mean, they're not showing like they really have any sense of urgency whatsoever. It's kind of just like, oh, we know we'll turn it around. We're the New York Yankees. We're going to turn it around. You don't know that. Look at last year. They thought it was going to happen and they missed the playoffs entirely. This year, you started off 50-22, and while right now you're 58-40, which is a good record, but that's terrible when you consider you start off that good. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be at that situation when you were on track to possibly win 110 games. Now you're not even on pace to win 100. So the point is, I just want to see them kind of care a little bit more. And some of the things that I believe it starts with, it goes to the manager. And I've been a guy who's defended Aaron Boone for a while, but this year my heart's changed a little bit on that because it doesn't really seem like these guys are always prepared. And as a manager's job, you need to make sure that these guys are focused, they're dialed in, and that they're prepared for each game. But when these guys are not showing basic baseball fundamentals and doing just things that you were not doing the things that you were taught in Little League, that falls on the manager, in my opinion. Obviously, Aaron Boone is not out there, hitting in double plays, hitting ground balls, striking out. I know he's not the one out there doing that, and at some point, the players do deserve blame as well. But the lack of fundamentals does fall on the manager. It does. It's literally his job to make sure that they're ready and prepared. So at some point, something's got to change. I don't know if it means you got to, get rid of Boone after this year, or even if the season continues to collapse at some point during the season. I don't know if it means just, reshuffling the whole roster. But I think we know this team has a lot of problems, and it sucks that we're on here talking about problems to a team that has a winning record and quite frankly still has a top 5 record in all of baseball. But considering what we've watched over the last month, I think it's valid for us to be really concerned about this team going forward. We know that the team they have right now is not good enough. We just know it. And it's sad that we're saying that considering they have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge on the same team and Garrett Cole as well as your ace. It sucks that we're saying that, but that is the reality right now. So things need to change. I want to see change. And it just, like I said, it goes back to my thing about Judge's impact. He's that good of a player, but when you're losing this much and teams have cracked the code on it, something's got to change, right? You got to do something about it. You can't just keep letting that live on forever. You don't want to see Judge just rack up walks all day and the other guys are not doing anything. Obviously, that's a good testament to Judge's discipline and, he's not willing to chase. But at the same time, you want to see Judge put the ball in play. It sucks having to watch him just walk because none of the other guys are doing anything. So that's really my point on it.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think it's worth noting that this is the final year of Aaron Boone's managerial contract. So if there's any quality free agent managers, well, we'll see how the season ends. But I want to get to a couple of comments before we go to disappointments and surprises. I'll start off with Li. His biggest ticket and his biggest pride is talking about DJ LeMahieu. He's had that take for a long time about him declining, and then eventually you got to trade him and stuff. Brad says 27 chips, yet we have spent over $4.2 billion in salaries since the last ring. You get old and you have season-ending injuries. It adds up. Money poorly spent. Donaldson, Hicks, Stanton deal. Lou says trade Volpe. I don't know what value you'd get for him, but I do agree that he is struggling. I would like to say what happened when we were 40-19 in April, May. Lineup was consistent, and they say the consistent lineup. Then Boone decided to flip everyone every day. I'm going to bookmark Jess's message question because I want to read everything else, but that's a very good question. I wouldn't trade Volpe. I wouldn't move him to his rightful position, second base. I know a lot of people talk about his weak arm and his weak defense, but I do agree with Lou here. That really would not make an impact on his batting. And what's up to Greg in the chat? We were kind of just talking about this a little bit. The question from Jess's mess and what's up to Jonathan in the chat is, what one thing do you blame for the huge drop-off in wins in crisp play? Well, I do blame the manager because, like Dylan said, there's shit in Little League that they teach you and even high school baseball that this team doesn't do. I mean, when you're going forward on a fly ball in the outfield when you're supposed to be retreating, that pisses me off because I was an outfielder for a majority of my baseball career, in high school and all that. That pisses me off. Gleyber Torres, getting benched and then, he's fine now. The Trent Grisham lackadaisical error in center field. There's a multitude of things that have gone on with this
Don't forget, too, when Anthony Volpe didn't run to home on the ground ball.
Yes.
And DJ LeMahieu didn't force a rundown either. So two bad mistakes in one play.
That pisses me off. And you know what? Let me ask y'all something. When was the last time the Yankees actually stole a base?
They've stolen like one base in the last month. And it was Juan Soto, I'm pretty sure, that stole the base. So,
Awful. It's despicable. It's I blame the effort. And whoever you want to blame for the effort, most people blame the manager. He's the leader. If somebody doesn't put in effort, you pull them off the field. But the Yankees don't do that, right? The Yankees didn't do that. Gleyber Torres practically walked to first base. You know what Aaron Boone said? Oh, he's dealing with a groin. It was a groin issue. Anthony Volpe. Do you think Anthony Volpe was in any trouble whatsoever with the Yankees organization? This is a player who's not giving any type of offensive output. He's essentially, I'll kind of bite back on the glove. I think Volpe is spectacular defensively. I know he had that horrible error in a Baltimore series, but overall, I love what he does with his glove, but that doesn't really matter for your top prospect. You've got to hit, okay? In order to be called a star in this league, there are no stars in Major League Baseball who can't hit, okay? Now, can Anthony Volpe eventually turn this around? Maybe, but there's no guarantees. This is Major League Baseball. It's hard. It's really hard to hit. So, now, having said this, to blame for the collapse, it is the fact that we got regressions from players, and I guess the numbers suggest analytically, Alex Verdugo is a player who has strong first half of the year. His second half of a season is usually dismal. That's part of the reason why Boston moved on from him, is the fact that those numbers are alarming. How many players would you consider that you want to have a long-term fit with that have a consistent drop-off in the second half of the season? Now, again, guys, Verdugo can turn this around. Like, it's still just baseball. He can turn this around. He's got the talent to do it. But when you do it 3 or 4 seasons in a row, now people are starting to draw conclusions about you based on trends. And that's something that the Yankees should have known. It's something Cashman should have known, which I guess technically in his defense, and this is the one defense I'm going to give Brian Cashman, and this is it. Okay? I'm assuming the New York Yankees thought that Verdugo was going to step into left field, have a strong first half of the year, and then they were going to send him packing, right, with some value, bring in Jason Dominguez, who's ready around midseason, and now you've got your replacement. Now, all of a sudden, you trade that player who's giving you an output. You get some pitching back, right, to get some depth. You bring in a much better player in Dominguez, but Dominguez goes down, right? Goes down at the exact same time that Giancarlo Stanton goes down. And I will say this, you can never blame the whole season on injuries because we see injuries every year. And you know who else sees injuries every year? Every other team in baseball. The Dodgers, the Braves. You lose Acuna, right? Kershaw, he's still out. All these players, guys are hurt all the time in this sport, okay? It just happens. Yamamoto's hurt right now. How many people are making excuses for the Dodgers? They're still after Skubal. They're calling Detroit. What do we do? How do we replace this arm? They're aggressive. That's what these organizations do. The Yankees put an asset on the field and say, well, hold on a second. He got hurt. We were expecting him to give us an output. So were they. They find ways, they find answers, because if you don't find an answer, we're just going into 2025 talking about what? A $500 or $600 million extension for Soto. The team still didn't get better by giving him that extension. We need other moves. We need other things to happen for us to win a championship. And right now, to blame the Yankees' collapse on injuries, I think that would be a cop-out answer. I think that would be copping this team out. I think it would be a real shame because I know injuries are a thing. I know they're impactful. They always will be. But guys, guys in Baltimore right now in their rotation are hurt. They're calling on Skubal as well. No one's making excuses for these organizations. They're trying to find answers. We're trying to find excuses. We're just trying to find excuses, and it's quite despicable. I'm sure people in the comments are going to feel the same way, but we can't sit here and talk about Brian Cashman and all the things that he's done wrong. How about all the things that he's just done nothing? How many times has an opportunity been on there, essentially been on his table, and he said, well, we're not going to go get that player because it requires us to give up this prospect, right? I see all the stuff because I watch all the shows. Okay. People think I don't watch. No, I watch every Yankee show and I see all the prospects that people keep talking about and the type of potential that they have. Well, when does the potential turn into the results? When do we stop talking about what a player can be and just start talking about what he is? And the Yankees seem to be talking about Dominguez. They talk about Spencer Jones. They talked about Clint Frazier, Estevan Florial, Jesus Montero. The list goes on of all these different players that they're super excited about. And they never see the light of day. They never matter. So I will say this is my final thing and my final thought. The Yankees at some point need to push the chips to the center of the table. They've never done it. They still didn't do it, by the way, trading for Juan Soto. They waited on this Juan Soto trade. They traded Drew Thorpe, Johnny Brito, Kyle Higashioka, Michael King, a reliever. Okay. So we essentially traded one big prospect and then Michael King, who we were using as a super utility and they thought could be a starter. The Yankees still to this day have never traded their top 1, 2, and 3 prospects and just shoved them to another organization and said, give me that dude. I need that guy. Okay. They have not done that, not even one time. Not since any of you were born. I'm 30. I think I'm the oldest one here. They have never done it since I was alive. So I'm not even trying to pick on you guys. They've never, ever done it. So the Yankees have got to get on that boat because if they don't, we are, Alex, like you said, we are pissing away one of the greatest careers that we've seen in pinstripes and Aaron Judge.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of underwhelming or prospects that don't see the light of day, Armand asked Lou if Volpe moves out of shortstop, who's playing shortstop? Peraza, even though his bat is crappy like Volpe. Yeah, haven't heard a sniff from him in a while. Cashman has to be aggressive and creative. Doubt we see any major trades. I mean, yeah, I agree with that. And of course, we'll have a discussion. What's up to Crackle Nuts? Please ban LI Yankee King if he says Soto 600 mil, send him to jail. What's up, LB? Who is the guy the Yankees should trade their top 3 prospects for? I mean, I don't know that there's no superstar out there. I mean, I'll say this and also read Bill's comment, a couple other things as well before we, move on. Is I was talking with a friend the other day, and he's more of an old school thinker, and he was talking about he wants Vlad Jr. and Jazz Chisholm at the deadline, and obviously I disagree with that for a multitude of reasons. But then we got onto a conversation of, he says he loves Juan Soto, but the problem is if you're paying him $600-700 million in total, and, Hal has this problem of spending, is it actually worth it when the rest of the team is not getting any better? Which, in essence, it's a conversation that we don't like to have, but it's a conversation that has to be had, especially if we're continuing with this ownership and we're continuing with this general manager, who, again, it's up to Hulkamaniacs. Notice the Hesad and Luca's background. Haven't thought a company in forever. Used to have same here. The Yankees changed how they work the farm system in 2019, but haven't changed the analytics department. The only thing I've seen positive out of the farm department, LI, to kind of disagree with your point, is all these hitters do great in AAA, and the hitting coaches that go in AAA, like Marcus Thames and Dylan Lawson, they're praised as hell, but they come up here and then they do jack shit. So that's where I kind of agree, but I also disagree. But moving on, before we get to the legitimate trade deadline talks, and then we'll have an Aaron Boone conversation, your biggest surprise, if you have any, and your biggest disappointment of 2024 thus far, Chef, I'll start with you.
Biggest disappointment is Anthony Volpe. It is not close. It's just, I don't know that there's another player, and I can genuinely tell you guys, just a great kid. So we're all rooting for him. We were all rooting for him because the future of the Yankees. Now, did he have to be Derek Jeter for the Yankees to win a World Series? No, not even close. He had to be one of the best shortstops in the game because you have to remember, fellas, this is the player, this guy. He's the reason why we said we cannot go get Luis Castillo. Can't have it happen. Okay. Now, if we had traded Anthony Volpe, now I'm not saying necessarily it was the right move, wrong move. I'm leaning towards it was the right move to trade him. But if you had traded for Luis Castillo, we're not having the conversation about $160-some million on our books and Carlos Rodon. Carlos Rodon is not living up to that contract at all. Okay. Now, I don't care that he received some big contract because, frankly, fellas, I love watching players get paid, especially on Hal's books. I love it. But to sit here and suggest that didn't snowball on us, the fact that Volpe is not one of the best shortstops in the sport, which he should be, is quite the disappointment. Because I will tell you, I thought based on what I saw last year, he hit 20 homers. His batting average was atrocious. But analytically, you can point to different things and say, I can see what they see in this kid. You could say you can see it, right? But we went into this year with the clear idea he needs to flatten out his swing. The strikeout numbers need to go down. He needs to walk more. The glove needs to stay at least on par with what we saw his rookie year. Want to go glove. He shows up this year. Gloves all there. Great. The pop, non-existent. He flattens out his swing. Do you think the strikeout numbers went down? They went up. What are we talking about? So this is something that I honestly, I would be shocked if anyone predicted that a player telling us that he's flattening out his swing to hit more line drives is going to strike out more than he did his rookie campaign. Fellas, I've heard of rookie, like sophomore slumps. I've heard of that. But sophomore slumps tend to happen after a Corbin Carroll, like meteoric rookie season. We didn't get that at Anthony Volpe. We got a glimpse of the future and then just a colossal dump after that. So I'm riding with Volpe there.
Yeah, I can't say that I disagree. Of course, I'll put up my own candidates. We could have had Gunnar. We got Volpe instead. Thanks for a reminder. Willie's about to be a free agent. Jones for Robert Jr. We'll obviously get to the trade deadline conversation. That'll be interesting. Put Robert Jr. in left field and Adames at third. I don't know if I'd put Willie Adames on this team personally, considering his numbers. That's just my personal opinion. And what pissed me off last year mostly about Volpe, you could say something about the batting average, which is something I totally agree with. 167 strikeouts. I can't tolerate that. And my old school mentality is this. Look, you want to strike out 130 times a year, at least hit for average or be a power hitter. Volpe, again, he will hit 20 homers last year. Great. Defense, okay, but the hitting consistently wasn't there, and we're kind of on that same pace, unfortunately. Luca, biggest disappointment and biggest surprise?
Biggest surprise, if I had to have one, he started this year really good, coming off Tommy John surgery. He's slipped since, and I think he's lost a bit of his confidence. I got to say, Luis Heel, I think he has a control problem, and I think he had that since his rookie season in 2021. Yes, it can be fixed, but I hope he really starts to succeed and, finds that confidence again. So he's my biggest surprise. My biggest disappointment, I got to go with Chef, and I got to say Volpe. Eli said it too. Because Volpe, not only did we hold him back from Castillo negotiations, we said this guy is like the golden goose of the Yankee organization, not we personally, but the Yankees organization. He's our golden goose. We're going to pass up on Corey Seager and Marcus Semien to make this guy fit. Not even for somebody to play third base next to him. We're going to pass on them just so Volpe can play shortstop. And right now, obviously, we're kind of regretting it. I hope Volpe works out, and I hope he succeeds. But again, too many strikeouts and some mental errors, obviously, but he's not what we expected right now. Am I hitting the panic button completely? Absolutely not. But again, he just kind of looks like one of those typical top Yankee prospects that has been hyped as like the next great whoever over the years, especially the next great shortstop that is reminiscent of Derek Jeter. He's failing at that. I'm not expecting him to Jeter. I never expected him to be Jeter. But again, he's like average right now. I'm sorry.
Just going to read a few comments. Surprise is Skinny Stan. Disappointment is Rodon's confidence. I think we need Tanner Scott as a closer. What do you think of Chisholm? Those are some candidates we'll definitely get to because our trade deadline thing is next. I agree. Way too many strikeouts. Also, shouts to Justice Mess for sharing this out. Dylan, your biggest disappointment and surprise?
Right, so the biggest surprise, I agree with both your guys' selections, but one of the biggest surprises for me is Stanton. And the reason I say that is because, he was putrid last year, just straight up awful last year. And I know he missed a couple months with an injury, but he never really returned to form at all. And I know this year it hasn't been like a perfect year for Stanton, but he's been very good in the time he's been here. I know him being absent right now is disappointing, and maybe one could say that is rather a disappointment rather than a surprise. But when he has played, he's been pretty good. He had close to 20 homers, I believe, before he got hurt, and he was actually providing some protection for Soto and Judge. Obviously, it wasn't like, MVP Stanton. I'm not expecting MVP Stanton, though. I just want him to hit home runs. That's why he's in the lineup, and he was doing just that. And he was coming through with guys in scoring position as well, which I felt like wasn't getting talked about enough, but he was doing just that. And you're kind of feeling his absence big right now, which shouldn't really be the case because you really shouldn't be expecting 2024 version of Stanton to be like the biggest reason why your team is slumping right now. But oddly enough, once he left the lineup because he got hurt, the team really started to fall off a cliff. They started to slide a little bit even before he got hurt, but they really hit a wall once he left the lineup, which, hopefully he's back very soon. I know they were saying that he could be back before the end of the month and might not even need a rehab assignment. Now, that does worry me because usually when he comes back from the injured list, he takes forever to get back into his groove. So I'm hoping that this time it's different and that he can figure it out and get back into form rather quickly. But when he was playing, he was a good surprise. He was pleasantly surprising for me, and it was good protection. I was feeling good about it. But, for biggest disappointment, I full-heartedly agree Anthony Volpe has been a massive disappointment, but I'm going to go with a different answer here. I'm going to say the entire Yankees infield has been a massive disappointment. We can, strictly say Volpe, of course, if we want to single out one guy, but if you look around the infield, they've been awful too. Anthony Rizzo was having a terrible year before he got hurt. One of the worst hitters in baseball, if anything, before that. Gleyber Torres has been inconsistent all year and got benched 2 games. Rizzo also got benched as well, I should mention. And of course, I've mentioned third base dozens of times on this stream, but I mention it again now. DJ LeMahieu has been terrible in the 2 months since he came back from the IL. He still has not hit a home run, by the way. Still without a home run. And it's been 2 months. That is terrible. I know he's not a home run hitter, but Come on, man. It's been 2
Brother
months.
has no business on the roster. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
He doesn't. And I think he should be DFA'd before this month is over if they can't find a way to just trade him. I don't think they're going to be able to trade him, though. So I think a DFA should be the answer. But I'm not the GM, so I can't make that final decision. And Oswaldo Cabrera was a pleasant surprise through the first couple weeks. And then he hit a cliff, too. He fell off a cliff as well, and now he hasn't been the same. I wasn't expecting much out of him, so it's unfair for me to put high expectations on him because he's a utility player. But, you know, him falling off like that disappointed me as well. So if you want me to say the biggest disappointment, the entire Yankees infield has been disappointing. Obviously, we've hit on some other things like, you know, Carlos Rodon's been disappointing this year. Great for the first 2 months, awful for the past month. We know that. Luis Hill, kind of the same story. Great for the first 2 months, hasn't been great the last month or so. He's kind of figured out his last 2 starts. I'm hoping that trend continues. But out of all the things that have really been, you know, disappointing this season, I think the infield stands out amongst all of it. I really do.
Yeah.
And I know we mentioned Volpe a lot, like we said, rotations on, but looking around the entire infield, I think we could have asked for a lot better production from every single one of them. You know, obviously, I'm not expecting all 4 of the infielders to play like all-stars, but I'm expecting more than all 4 of them to be hitting barely above 200, none of them to have double-digit home runs this far into the year. I'm expecting more than that. So, yeah, that's my biggest disappointment, the entire infield.
I thought we were the Yankees too. Because isn't that crazy? Dylan doesn't expect him to play like all-stars, but the last time we even sniffed a World Series, we had all-star infield. This is what we did.
Yeah.
And
You know, you're
and I
right,
know
man.
it seems crazy, doesn't it? Like thinking, oh, you gotta have all-stars all over the field. Yeah. The teams that win World Series, like the Dodgers and the Braves, all those teams, you see them laced all over the All-Star game. They're having good years, they're healthy, they're going, they're
And yeah, it's a
aggressive.
good point. I mean, look at the
Come on.
Phillies. They just had 8 representatives at the All-Star game just the other day. So
An
I mean,
incredible
you make a
turnout.
good point with you do make a good point with that. And you know, like I'm not one that puts the high expectation of all 9 guys you put in the lineup need to be all-stars because I feel like that's just an unfair expectation to put.
Yep.
But like you said, I mean, we are the Yankees. You feel like they should have that kind of payroll to be able to just bring in these kind of guys and the attraction of, hey, you're playing in pinstripes and winning culture, all this stuff. But I mean, it hasn't been that way over the past decade or so. And it's unfortunate that we're in this situation now where I'm talking about how the entire infield has been putrid and how, you know, certain guys have really fallen off and all this stuff. It sucks that I'm in that situation where I have to talk about it, but that's the sad reality of it. And that's why
You know how people take it though? You know how people take this? They take this as, well, you guys must think like Dylan, Luca, and Alex, they must think that just because you're the Yankees, you're going to get all these players. No, sometimes you've got to insist on going to get these players. You need to be the highest bidder. You need to be the most aggressive in the trade market.
Exactly.
And the team that's been the most aggressive has been the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're the team. When Max Scherzer went on the market, they said, well, we'll take the flyer. We're not just going to call and kick the tires.
Too. You know, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, all these guys. Same with them.
They're the most aggressive team. And if the Yankees want to look like the Yankees, okay. So if you look in the background of Luca's screen right now, you're going to see a crowd of a half-filled Yankee Stadium. If you want to see that crowd be full, you need to look into the field. And when we're doing roll call, I better not be seeing Oswaldo Cabrera at third base. I shouldn't see Alex Verdugo in left field. I should see great players all over the field. To Dylan's point, all 9 players are not going to be all-stars. It's just not realistic.
Yeah.
But damn near a lot of them should be. A lot of them should be great players. That's what being a great organization is that more times than not, when a player walks up to the batter's box, you say, that guy's formidable. Right now, more than half of the players that walk up to home plate are a below average, which I describe below average as average is a 700 ops. The Yankees in their final game of the regular season in the first half there, they had 3 players with an ops over 700, and one of them, we haven't even mentioned him in the show, is Ben Rice. And Ben Rice wouldn't have played if Rizzo didn't get hurt. So we're in a situation right now where we just don't have enough talent, and it's up to people that are way over our heads to get more talent on the field if we want to be the Yankees.
Absolutely. All great points. What's up to Man Cave in the chat? Volpe is Omar Vizquel with a lesser glove. Great infielders that don't do much with the bat. It is what it is, guys. I was never a Gleyber Torres fan. What's up to Scrubs? He teases you enough to think he's a plus player, but in reality, he's a sorry player. And the infield is as a whole is sorry as hell. All needs in and out pitch. Um, so I will say for my surprise, I'm gonna go with a different answer and say before he struggled, Marcus Stroman, because honestly, I very much disapproved of the signing, but I'm like, you know what? Let me give it a chance. And then my disappointment, I'm gonna say Alex Verdugo because I expected a little bit more power from him, being that we're in a very much lefty favorable park with that short porch. And just, he brings this dog mentality, whatever. But errors like what happened on the last day of the first half, that's unacceptable. And I've seen that a lot from him, unfortunately. Hitting, defense, whatever. What's up to Evan in the chat? He goes, Clay Holmes is not a closer. Well, I will very much agree with you on that one. As we go to the top weaknesses and trade deadline targets, I'll start with Dylan on this one. How do you rank the needs for the Yankees at the trade deadline? And do you have specific targets that the Yankees should go after?
Right. So I think the top target's got to be a bat. I mean, we were just talking about how the lineup has been terrible and how Gary just mentioned that 3 guys in the lineup have an OPS above 700, which that's terrible. If only 3 guys in the lineup have that OPS and one of them's only played like 20 some odd games this season, I mean, I think that should be right there, clear as day, that you need to go get a bat. And I think position wise for that bat, it's got to be at third base because you cannot play DJ LeMahieu and Oswald Cabrera every day. If you want to be serious about winning a World Series, you can't do it. I'm sorry, you just cannot do it. You need to go get a third baseman. And I know there are some third base options out there. I mentioned Ryan McMahon at the start, but I know he recently was put off the table, so that dream is dead. So if you want to look pivot elsewhere, I know Isak Paredes just became available. I also did just say, though, that I don't think the Rays and the Yankees are going to make a trade with each other. I just don't see it. Another option that could be realistic, though, maybe like Luis Rengifo. I think he might be on the IL right now, but hopefully by the end of the month, he's healthy enough to be back out on the field. I think he'd be a solid fit. I mean, I know it's not no big fish acquisition, but I think you just need to have someone that can provide something. We have Judge and Soto out there as your big boppers. I wish we had more. We'll have Stanton when he comes back, off the IL, but you need guys that can just do more than just hit groundouts all day and just pop out and all this stuff. And I think Rengifo could be a good fit in the lineup. He has a high average. He has a little bit of pop to him. I think he would be good for that short porch in right field. Like I said, it's not no crazy big fish, but I think it's a realistic target. I'm trying to be realistic with the target. And another area of what the Yankees need, relief pitching. I think that's pretty obvious as well. And I want them to be a little aggressive in that. I know they're going to have Scott Effross coming back, and I think they're going to probably call up that JT Brubaker person as well, who just came off the rehab assignment or is in the middle of it. So they'll have a couple guys, but they need more. They need more. And I think someone you could go get, someone mentioned it before, Tanner Scott. He's one of the guys I've been targeting most of the season, and I think he'd be great. The problem is he was an all-star, so his price is probably going to be a little high, which is unfortunate for a relief pitcher. I hope they don't have to give up too much for that because I would really hate to give up a lot of assets for a guy that's going to pitch 1 inning a game. But, I mean, they need somebody. And I think Tanner Scott would be great because they also lack a lot of lefties in that pen, a lot of effective lefties at that. And Tanner Scott would be good for it. I really do. I don't think they're going to go get Mason Miller. I don't think the A's trade Mason Miller at all, actually, because, I mean, he's young. He's got a lot of team control. I feel like their asking prices for him are going to be outrageous as well. So I don't think any team's going to be willing to take the bait on that. So I think Mason Miller stays in Oakland. Go get Tanner Scott out of Miami. I think the Marlins would be willing to move him, and I think the Yankees could be a good trade partner for him. So those are some of my targets.
Okay. Armin says that Scott is also a rental. Gummy says Red Sox better. Well, I disagree, but then again, you guys beat us in a 3-game series, so my opinion is irrelevant there. Hey, Clay Holmes is a closer. Every time I see him, he makes me question what this team is doing. Top target is relief pitching, especially a closer. Luca, your top targets at the trade deadline.
Definitely need a bat. I'd say we definitely need a bat. I think Rengifo's the top of my list. I really don't have any other ones at the moment. I know Robert's been mentioned, but I think from what I know, I guess he's been a little often injured or injured recently or whatever. You also, as Dylan also brought up, Tanner Scott, as Dylan also said, he's going to cost a lot. Mason Miller, and when I bring up Mason Miller and Tanner Scott, I want 2 things in a bullpen pitcher for the Yankees. I want somebody who throws high velocity with control and is able to get a ton of strikeouts, because the Yankees, we all know that the Yankees have been missing that. And as well as, like, we need a bullpen sort of weapon. Like, we need a pitcher that hitters fear to face, like a Mason Miller, Tanner Scott. So I'm thinking of those two. I'm thinking Rengifo is in terms of a hitter. I don't think the Yankees, in terms of starting pitching, I don't think they're going to go out and get Tarek Skubal. I know their interest is based in Garrett Crochet right now, who was once a reliever, but also, according to John Heyman, the Yankees don't have as much interest as other teams. So expect, like, the Dodgers to be outbidding the Yankees for Garrett Crochet.
Robert has only played 100 plus games once in his career, and he was injured early in the season. Chef, your deadline targets.
What's funny is they just said that other teams would be more involved. And isn't that just kind of the story of the Yankees? That's what we've done. We did this with Verlander. Remember that? The Yankees don't really want him. And Houston said, we'll take him. They win one World Series. That's just what we've done. Okay. So sometimes when the Yankees tell you that they're not going to go as hard after that player because he costs too much. By the way, I think you guys are absolutely right. I think the Yankees, if something's going to cost too much, they're walking away. We've just accepted that as reality. And again, you guys are right on the target. My answer would have been that Chicago White Sox package. We're talking Garrett Crochet and Robert Jr. We were talking about his injury history. Part of that injury history also can help you acquire a player. Okay. Now, if a guy has an injury history, in theory, his market should be down. The Yankees should say, well, he's had injuries, and that's a risk for you as an organization that's trying to rebuild. If he gets hurt, you can't trade him this offseason. If he gets hurt, you can't trade him next year. And you can possibly put yourself into a position where, by the way, fellas, if you don't get this deal done, we know Baltimore is going to be calling on him. We know Baltimore is going to be calling on a lot of these teams because we're talking about bringing in an arm. Baltimore needs an arm more than we do. Okay. We need bats. Now, this package happens to take an arm off the market for Baltimore, which would then, in theory, if you go get a deal like this done, forces Baltimore to potentially part ways with Holiday. Okay. And I know that sounds crazy to mention, but when you put organizations in a spot where Baltimore has to think that they can beat the Yankees and beat out the National League and beat Philadelphia in the World Series, if they don't think that, I don't know what they're doing. But you might put them in a situation to give up so much value for the short term that it might help the Yankees for years. So I'm going super aggressive, and I'm going after that Chicago package because I think it's really good. I totally agree with Dylan, that Scott package with Chisholm, another really good move for the Yankees. It's probably going to cost less, especially the fact that Miami's front office has no clue what they're doing, right? They just gave away Arias to San Diego. We're not sure what they're doing, but maybe the Yankees can take advantage of that. So we look that way first. If that market dries up for whatever reason there would be, if Chisholm ends up going to Philadelphia, well, you need to pivot and take an option out of the play for Baltimore. You cannot allow them. They took Burns from us, right? We were after Burns, didn't get him. So I'm just saying, if we had Burns right now, how would the Yankees be looking? How would this dynamic look with Baltimore? Because we have to remember, Baltimore is right in front of us. I know that's a Boone thing to say, like we've got this team right in front of us, but Baltimore is our Houston right now. And I know Houston's surging as well, so Houston's our Houston. But again, fellas, we're not the only team after talent. These other teams, you might not give up talent for this guy, but all these teams that are winning championships are just throwing talent around. They replace it. The Dodgers traded away, Alvarez to Houston. You really think they're missing him? They're not, right? So you can give up talent, you can give up prospects, and hopefully we do that. And I know, hopefully for our sakes as podcasters, because if it's not very fun when we don't.
And
Absolutely.
before we do move on, it's good that you mentioned Baltimore because I wanted to talk about them as well because I know that they're going to be heavily in the mix for guys like Garrett Crochet. I was literally having a conversation with somebody about this earlier today, how I feel like Baltimore is going to probably be super aggressive and go get Garrett Crochet, and that is unfortunate for us because we know Baltimore's pitching is very shot right now. They got several guys out for quite a while with Tommy John. Really unfortunate injury situation for them, but we know they're going to be very aggressive to go get starting pitching. And we know their offense is relentless. We've faced them several times this year, and we know those guys are hard to get out. So we know that's already a problem right there. But now imagine if, we meet up with them in the playoffs and we got to deal with Corbin Burns and Garrett Crochet. That's going to be tough, man, especially with this offense we have at the moment. It's going to be tough. And it sucks that we don't need the arms as much and that they're going to be super aggressive for them and that we're just going to have to probably settle for like a Luis Rengifo in terms of a bat, which isn't a bad thing, but it's also not like, the crazy big fish like Luis Robert or anything like that. That's the reality of it. But I just wish the Yankees would be more aggressive. It kind of goes back to my point about their aggression because we're about to see how aggressive the Orioles are going to be. I'm prepared for it. I'm pretty prepared for the Orioles to be really aggressive at the deadline. And I don't know. Part of me has a bad feeling that we're going to be left disappointed a little bit. I'm hoping to be proven wrong because I like to be proven wrong in these kind of scenarios. So let's just see what happens. But
I think Baltimore's going to
is
get
right there.
Scooble.
Yeah, and they very well could. And you know what? If they do get Scooble, that's another problem right there.
It's a problem.
Scooble's been fantastic this year as well. Whether they get Scooble or Crochet, it's going to be a problem. They're both great pitchers. So the Yankees need to be able to respond to that and get some good bats or some good bullpen arms. Do something because, like you just said, Baltimore is the Houston right now. It is the Yankees and the Orioles for the American League. And it's pretty clear those are the two favorites right now in the American League. So Yankees need to do something about it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, Dylan brought up a great point because as I look on Twitter, the Orioles have expressed interest in left-handed pitcher Tanner Scott, who used to be an Oriole, by the way, to my knowledge, and Athletics right-handed pitcher Mason Miller per John Heyman. Now, obviously, we don't know if Mason Miller is going to get dealt, but it is worth noting that Felix Bautista has been out the entire season. And will not be back until next year. I think it was like Tommy John surgery, something like that. But, that's a team that wants to pull the trigger. Obviously, we are sitting here twiddling our thumbs. I will say my targets, I don't know who to go after with infield because Rengifo would probably be a good option. He's on the IL, though. We don't know when he's coming back. And like Dylan said, McMahon is pretty much off the table. I'm like stuck there. I'm going to be honest. I think Jazz Chisholm is more of a name than he is like this player. He's versatile. I think it's a year or 2 more years of control. Him and Crochet were brought up at the same time in 2020. But with me, as Chisholm is like, again, it's more of a name than it is like a quality baseball player. So I don't know if you have to move Gleyber Torres if you bring him in. I mean, that just has to happen. Now, will they trade Gleyber Torres? Probably not because this is the Yankees. As far as Tanner Scott goes, I would go after him. The only issue that a lot of people have is his walk percentage over the course of his career. But again, he's been pretty much stellar the last 2 years with the Marlins in total. Mason Miller, we talked about him a little bit. I don't think the Yankees are even in that conversation because if the A's wanted to give him up, they'd be asking for a lot. And, the Yankees probably not going to be in that conversation. As far as Garrett Crochet goes, I'm not a huge fan of trading for him. And here's the thing, right? I'm kind of like Dylan and probably everybody else on the panel. I would like to be proven wrong about certain things. And if I don't like a player and they come in and they pitch really well or they hit really well, I'm like, hey, listen, I was wrong. That's me about Marcus Stroman before he hit the slump. Crochet, a little concerned about the injury history, but my favorite target in the starting rotation is Turk Skubal. I think the last few years he's had like 100 plus strikeouts. I think I have it here. Let's see. 140 this year already. 102 last year, 117, 164. That's over the last 4 seasons in total. He's a strikeout machine, and I think the rotation can really prosper off of him coming in. But I think, again, to Luca's point is, here's the thing. We credit Brian Cashman with these small findings. Michael Tonkin, Clay Holmes was one of them. They're good finds, but the problem is that they're not good finds and elite like the Yankees need. Clay Holmes has shown you that he's not an elite closer and that he may not even be a closer. So you need a strikeout pitcher, and I'm not going to say Aroldis Chapman, but someone, again, that can overpower you. To me, Clay Holmes can fool you. That's different. But once you get him erratic and he blows how many saves, then you're in trouble. And again, I think Tanner Scott definitely does make for a better candidate to trade for at the deadline. 2.5 years of control for Crochet, Jazz, and Scooble. 5 years of control for Mason Miller. So
I trade anyone for Mason Miller. I don't give a rip who you list. I don't care who we've got in our system. I don't care. Because again, fellas, the most important thing about prospects is that they have to align with the timeline of the organization. This team, our two best players in Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, we need to win in the next 3 years. Okay. These next 3 seasons, that's our window. Okay. Can we win in 5 years? Yeah, I'm sure we'll have a chance. We're going to spend a ton of money. Stan will come off the books, right? Like all this stuff. But the Yankees have to bring players in that are ready to play now. Don't tell me about 2026. Don't tell me about 2028. That'll be amazing when we're there. Okay. That's like when Stranger Things, the next season of Stranger Things will come out. I don't want to wait around for a young player to figure his stuff out like a normal young player would, right? I mean, they've got to go through the progressions of being, going through the AAA and getting to the pros and then making their sophomore adjustments. But the Yankees aren't in that spot right now. The Yankees' time to to actually develop prospects and then pair those prospects with Aaron Judge and then create a super team, that ship has sailed, okay? That ship was supposed to be like Clint Frazier in left field, okay? And if that panned out. But we're now in a different timeline, okay? Like we're in a different universe where now we need to go call organizations that have assets that are giving an output right this second, because that's how we can use them. We need to use them in 2024 because like you said, Alex, Luca, you mentioned this as well. We have no clue if Juan Soto is going to be here next year. We just don't know. We don't know if the Mets are going to offer $700 million and House is going to be like, I'm not going that far. And then now we're in a situation where we lose Juan Soto and then replace him with Jason Dominguez and say, well, hopefully this is enough. Right. So we're an organization that's in win now mode. And if Mason Miller, for whatever reason, for the love of Jesus, was available, I am packaging whatever for this man because he is probably the most dynamic arm I've ever seen. And this is coming from someone who said, we need bats. Dylan mentioned, we need bats. Totally agree. But when there's a player that you have control of for 5 years, which was mentioned in the comments, that's that level, you have to acquire him. Any means necessary. And then we go into this offseason, you're forced to re-sign Soto, and then you need to bring in a slew of bats after that. That's essentially the way I look at it, is that sometimes there are players that are at a certain level where you have to go away from team need and just bring in the best thing that's happening on that side of the ball.
Yeah. All great points, definitely. Moving to a different subject, and also Evan brings up a good point. Need relievers with good off speed and a strikeout pitch and a good fastball. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And again, I'm a little iffy on giving up, and to be honest, I'm a little iffy on giving up Spencer Jones for certain guys, but they have to prove me wrong. But then again, if I'm going off of my pessimism, they won't give up Spencer Jones for any of these guys at the deadline. That's just my personal opinion.
They didn't do it for Corbin Burns.
That's what I got pissed about. I'm like, you couldn't give it up for Corbin Burns, but I digress. We could talk about talent all day. We could talk about getting Mason Miller or Garrett Crochet or Tanner Scott or Jazz Chisholm or any of the guys we mentioned, Turek Skubal. We could talk about Juan Soto. We could talk about Aaron Judge. But the manager has an impact. And over the last month or two, it's been felt in not so much a good way. I've noticed that this team is, besides struggling, which obviously we've all seen. If you haven't been watching, then I don't know what to tell you. The errors in the field, the lackluster effort. Not to mention, we have not been playing Austin Wells and Ben Rice consistently, I should say. And we were told, oh yeah, Austin Wells is going to be a very good catcher. He's going to be this, he's going to be that. And there's that. He's also done this hot and cold days crap again, which he didn't do at the beginning of the season. And let me say this before I shift it over to Chef on this, and I know that I'm probably going to get most agreements from the panel. I'm not going to sit here and say this is the most talented Yankee team ever. I'm not even going to say, I should say, there's no such thing as a perfect baseball team. There's no such thing as a perfect team. There's going to be a need somewhere, whether it's this position, that position, whatever. in my personal opinion, besides Giancarlo Stanton, in my opinion, the Yankees aren't really missing anybody else that's on the injured list. So the way I see it, this is the best Yankee team, talent-wise, that Aaron Boone has ever had. Bring in Juan Soto. The expectations increase to be at least in the championship series and a World Series contender. But let's be honest, if he keeps pulling this shit, this is where the plug needs to be pulled, or a lot of Yankee fans are going to be pissed off. And I sympathize with those Yankee fans because I have those same thoughts. Chef, your thoughts on Aaron Boone?
Well, it seems to me that while we did bring in Juan Soto, we got worse in like 3 other departments. Okay. We mentioned Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres, 2 of his last 3 seasons, has been an excellent player. He was one of our best players last year. He's been terrible this year. He doesn't bring any effort to the field. He's not good defensively. He never has been. And his bat's not there. He's not hitting for contact. He's not hitting for power. He's hitting 210. Okay. So you have to remember that if you have a black hole at third base to the point where John Birdie is a huge upgrade at third base, your organization hasn't done enough legwork to ask to win a championship. You cannot tell me that just because you brought in Juan Soto, and I actually, Alex, I'll disagree with you on a standpoint of this is the most talented roster that Aaron Boone's had, because I just think right now the median is so low for this organization in terms of talent and in terms of the infield that Dylan brought up earlier. Our infield is putrid. It's so bad. Okay. Ben Rice, majority of people had no idea who that was 4 months ago. Okay. And I'll be honest with you guys. I've heard of him, but did I think this is one of our prospects that we're going to be utilizing in 2024? I didn't. I just knew he was giving us an output in the minor leagues, and that was something to be excited about. And maybe the Yankees could cash that in for value down the road. That's all I thought. But if you told me that the Yankees' 3rd best offensive player on the team right now was going to be Ben Rice, I would have said, well, who did what? Did the team bus crash? Like what's going on? No, that's the talent that we've put out there. So I can't agree. I thought the teams with like Gio Urshela at 3rd, and were they the best teams ever? No, they really weren't. But they were formidable. They were the median was higher. There were good players at each position. They needed to be great to overcome Houston. We weren't great. Okay. That's what happened. Everyone wants to blame the cheating scandal and the, beating on the trash cans, all this stuff, whatever. We weren't great. That was our problem. Our ceiling didn't go that high. We weren't at that level to have those like expectations, but you brought in a player who was better than pretty much anyone that had been in the organization in 20 years outside of Aaron Judge. And then 4 or 5 of the players in the field all got worse the following season. So that's the position we're in. I think right now, Aaron Boone doesn't pull effort out of his players. That's my problem. Okay. I see little league mistakes. If you watch 162 games a year of all these teams, you're going to be like, what the hell is my organization doing? What was Baltimore doing 2 weeks ago? They lost like 9 games in a row. What were they doing? Okay. Now you can say this must be poor leadership. What are they doing? But what actually was happening is that every organization looks pretty bad, at somewhere along the way. But at the very least, you can look at the roster and be like, yeah, whoever's playing 3rd base today, yeah, I expect something from him. Left field, I expect something from him. We've got like 4 guys in our lineup that we, frankly, all of us can agree, you're not getting jack. With DJ LeMahieu is going to give you 3 hits tomorrow. Is that your expectation? Do you want DJ LeMahieu up there in an American League Championship Series against some of the best pitchers in baseball? Why would he be able to hit that, but he can't hit an average regular season pitcher? It wouldn't happen, right? So we know this. So yeah, for Boone, I think Boone is he was doing a really good job at first extending the starters and kind of helping the bullpen get through this season. But outside of that, he's been very lackluster. And this roster, frankly, I don't love it. I don't love the roster. I don't think there's a ton of depth. We've got, Jahmai Jones coming off the bench. How many of you thought Jahmai Jones was going to be getting some serious burn and hitting 280 for the Yankees this year? We're in a situation where it's like, guys, at some point or another, how can I expect this team to go win a World Series if you didn't do the necessary legwork to put the talent around these really good players? Once you do that, I'll change my prediction of what's going to happen. Until then, Philadelphia is a much better team. Baltimore, in my opinion, is a much better team, especially consider they're probably like 2 arms away from just blowing us away. That is what it is. Because right now, our arms could get better. We definitely need more arms in the bullpen. Definitely. And we need bats. We need 2 things. Baltimore needs 1. So that's the situation we're in.
Yeah, I just want to get to a few comments. Mason Miller, part UCL tear scares me. Shouts to Danny for the 199 super chat ×2. Salute. If Soto walks, can Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez be enough? I'm going to say no to that. Can Heel benefit the team closing games? I know a lot of people wanted to move him to the bullpen in the first part of the year because of his command and a couple other different issues in his length. I would say do not mess with him as a starter right now. And then if it gets worse, then you probably move him to the bullpen or figure something out. Aaron Boone is yes man. He don't call the shots. And here's the thing, right? Obviously, it's also very much boring to agree on everything. So there's obviously got to be a disagreement somewhere. And here's the thing, right? Call me a narrative pusher. My problem, and maybe I overextend when I say that this is the most talented Yankee team. I'm just so tired of the excuses for Aaron Boone that people make. And none of us make excuses for Aaron Boone. We see it and we call it as it is. But I'm just so tired of the excuses. Oh, he doesn't have the roster. Oh, what do you expect him to do with this guy? And there's valuable points. And I'm not saying Chef is making those points. There's other guys on Twitter that, homer for the team and stuff like that. But the problem is we've seen the same shit since 2018. We've been turning a corner since 2018. It's been in front of us since 2018. Any other comment you want to make? It's been in front of us. It's been there since 2018. And the Yankees have not gotten even to game 6, game 7 of the championship series. Karen Boone. Yeah, I like this one. People like Michael K defend Boone to the end. It makes me sick. Well, this doesn't surprise me in the slightest. But Luca, your thoughts on turning a corner?
It's Alex. You said it. We're nailing the head. It's been the same thing for the past 6 years. Excuses. Obviously, yes, as Chef was saying, slumps happen to every single team, even the best teams in baseball. But it's just like the Yankees' attitude when those slumps happen is different from every other team. Every other team that's the best in baseball says, you know what? This is not acceptable. We're not accepting this. We are going to get out of this. The Yankees is like, well, we're going to turn a corner. It's like passive. It's like very passive. Every other team's like aggressive. Like, we're not standing for this shit. The Yankees is like, we're turning a corner. It's right in front of us. It's the same goddamn messages we've been sold for the past 6 years, and I'm sick and tired of it entirely. Aaron Boone has a part in it, a huge part in it. The players have a part in it, and so does the entire organization as a whole. The bar has lowered. And I'm sick and tired of that, in my opinion. That's just me. I could go on a lot more, but I am not choosing to because I'm not selfish.
Yeah. No accountability. Boone would rather blame the grass on the field or the roof system, I should say, than to hold a player accountable. It's right in front of us. Yeah, I mean, there was a situation last year, I think it was, or the year before, Torey Lovello benched one of his players because of a lackluster effort. I think Scott Service did or something like that. But there's just so many examples around the league. And then you look inside the Yankees and you're like, well, why isn't my team doing this? But Dylan, your thoughts on Aaron Boone?
Yeah, I touched on it earlier, but I'm going to touch on it more obviously since we're talking about Boone specifically here. But I've defended Boone for a while. The first 5 years or so of his managerial time as a Yankee, I blamed a lot of the problems on Cashman because of the rosters. The rosters weren't great. The rosters weren't fantastic. They weren't amazing. Even last year, I mean, that was a pretty bad roster. I know the team stunk. I know they had injuries, but it was a pretty bad roster. This year, I mean, you could say the same thing. The roster is pretty bad. But when I'm watching them make the little league mistakes, not hustling the home plate on a ground ball to first, not doing a rundown, not hustling to first base on a routine ground ball, not running back on a fly ball, routine fly ball at that. When I see things like that, Obviously, we can blame the player, but where does the manager not get blamed for that? The manager, like I said, the manager is the guy who is supposed to make sure these guys are prepared. These guys are professional baseball players. They shouldn't be making these kinds of mistakes. It should come naturally for them to do these types of things, the right things, and they're not doing it. When I'm seeing that, I feel a disconnect between the managers and the players. It feels like something's off. And back to your guys' point about the stuff he's saying in the media, it doesn't feel like there's any urgency. Back to what I said before, it feels like they're kind of just like, oh, we're the Yankees. We know we'll turn it around. We're the Yankees. We'll be just fine. We'll start winning games eventually. It's right in front of us. Oh, I see us. We're turning the corner. I see some encouraging things. We're not seeing encouraging things, though. When we're seeing the team just lose game after game after game after game, why are we giving ourselves moral victories? Why are we going, oh, well, this guy looked good today? I don't care if we lost the game. If we lost the game, I could care less, honestly. You know what I mean? So I don't really understand why that's been the central point for Boone this entire time of, oh, this guy looks good. This stuff looks good. Oh, this guy's dealing with this. This guy's dealing with that. How about just hold your players accountable and be like, yeah, we're not doing good right now, and we're going to fix this. We're going to do something about this. Why do I got to hear, oh, DJ was hustling on this play? No, he wasn't. Oh, Gleyber Torres is dealing with a groin. That's an excuse. If he's playing, then it's clearly not. It's clearly fine enough to be playing. If he's out there, if his groin is seriously an issue, then why is he playing? That's the way I see it on that.
It's weird that he can run when he hits the ball in the gap, but when he hits the ball on the ground, he just can't move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just interesting how it flares up when the ball is on the floor.
Exactly. Like, that's my point. Like, when we're hearing things like that, it's like, okay, then why is he out there? And like, DJ LeMahieu, for example, hitting like under 200 all year. So what does Aaron Boone or in the front office and stuff do to try to mix it up? Let's hit DJ LeMahieu lead off. Why? Why is he leading off? And then he goes 0 for 5. So what? I got to watch him get the most at bats on the team and still not get a hit. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? This isn't the same DJ LeMahieu. You have to do the things that are supposed to. They're not doing the things that I want to see them do. And I know that there's only so much you could do with the roster you're handed with, but I feel like certain things is just like, why are you doing that? What's the justification for it? What's the justification for hitting Alex Verdugo cleanup as long as he's been hitting him cleanup for? What's the justification for leading off LeMahieu, like I mentioned, or keeping Anthony Volpe leading off for as long as they did as well? What's the reason for all that? Why not make a change when you see it's starting to really slip? Isn't that the whole point? I mean, at the start of the year, I thought I was seeing that from Boone because if I remember correctly, at the start of the year, it wasn't like they were really slumping, but like they weren't like doing amazing. They started off like, decent, but it could have been better. Aaron Boone mixed the lineup up a little bit, and then they really started to take off from there. He showed some aggression for once, though. He showed lineup consistency. He wasn't just giving guys days off for no reason. He mixed up the lineup a bit when it needed to kind of be touched a little bit, and good results came. And now all of a sudden, it's like we're kind of just like, oh, I know better results will come. Better results will come. You just got no jump. When? When will they come? When will those better results show up? We keep thinking that they're going to show up any day now, but it seems like it's only getting worse. And sure, they won a series against Baltimore before the All-Star break. But how could I be encouraged heading into tomorrow to start the second half when they closed out the first half doing the same silly mistakes that was hurting them for the past month? How can I feel good about that? Like, on the surface, it's like, oh, they took 2 out of 3 from Baltimore. Great. But how did they lose that one game? Making silly mistakes, going right back to the bad stuff. So at some point, I think the manager needs to fall on it. And I'm not saying that, like, Boone is 100% the reason why we're not playing as good as we are right now. It's, the players do deserve some blame because, I mean, I don't think everyone expected this bad of a regression from so many guys. I don't know if that was exactly predicted. But at the same time, if this is constantly happening every year, when do we start to look at the manager and go, maybe he's not doing something right? So that's what I think about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I see a stream of comments, but there's 2 points I want to bring up, and then we'll read the comments and finish off. Is for anyone who watches the NFL and knows different terminologies, Aaron Boone is a game manager. That's how you describe a quarterback that's very average and needs everything elite around him. Reminds me of my own quarterback. Reminds me of Jimmy Garoppolo. They will not do anything to superb, like you won't say, oh yeah, this guy won the game. No, it will be because either the defense kicked in or this, that, and the other thing. So that's number one. He is a game manager. He needs an absolutely elite team in every single solid area of the Yankees for them to actually be a legitimate contender or a World Series threat, as everyone claims. Number two, obviously, Dylan made a lot of great points. Everyone made great points. And he talks about, well, I just can't blame this only on the manager. And we've talked about sense of urgency for the last few years. And does anyone know what Brian Cashman said when he had his press conference? He said, "Oh, yeah, we've been going through struggles." And I'm paraphrasing, but this is legitimately true. But we have a nice cushion because we won a lot of games in the first half. And I'm like,
I'm so
well,
glad you brought that up because that ties exactly what I said with the urgency thing. It's oh well, we did good to start the year, so it's okay. And remember last year when the Yankees were struggling in June and Hal Steinbrenner was like, "Oh, I don't know why the fans are freaking out. It's only early June." Why are we acting like this is like okay? We want to see the team. Obviously, we can't expect the team to be perfect all year. Baseball is a season of ebbs and flows. They're gonna have good moments. They're gonna have bad moments. I get that, but when you're kind of just being like, "Oh, it's okay. It's not a big deal. We'll be just fine," and then you end up in the same disappointing result at the end of it in October, how am I supposed to feel encouraged when I'm hearing the same stuff again? It's eyewash at this point.
it's unbelievable.
Hey,
But
we may be bad the first, hey, we were great the first 2 months of the season, but the Yankees are always bad. The last 4 seasons, we're like way below 500 in the last 2 months of the year. Which team is it that wins championships that's bad in August and September and October? Which team is that? Because I need to go find that team so I can go study what they've done and then say, okay, the Yankees can go do that.
You can even look at last year. The 2 teams that were in the World Series were wild card teams. They rode into the postseason on a hot hand and made it to the World Series. Texas Rangers won the World Series as a wild card team because they rode in there on a hot hand. So, it's that simple.
And technically, the Yankees can go take all momentum. I don't know how many of you in here in this chat thought the Yankees were going to go take 2 of 3 or go win a series against that Baltimore team that we saw. I didn't expect to go beat Baltimore at all. So the fact that we won that series was a pleasant surprise. We should have swept the series, to be quite honest with you.
Mhm.
If Verdugo didn't just fall down like a kid in the sandbox and Volpe didn't drop a ground ball right to him, we would have swept the series, right? So, but having said this, the Yankees need to, at some point or another, take the now more serious. They're way too hyper-focused on, we'll turn it around. We'll figure it out. They've done nothing for us to believe that that's the case. They need to be more proactive.
Always it's about how we respond to this. Well, the way I'm seeing you respond to this is that you're just putting your head down and just being like, well we're just going to keep losing, I guess. So
the good news is that they're turning the corner. So we'll see what's around the corner starting on Friday.
Yeah, I don't know how many corners you could turn, but
one more.
Well, maybe 2 more.
2 more corners.
Boone is like a parent who would rather be the child's friend than the parent. That's absolutely true. And by the way, I forgot to go on this, but I put a poll in the chat, the biggest need at the deadline. So 3% say outfield, 13% say starting pitching, 38% say bullpen, and 46% say third base and second base. So that is what the fans think in the comment section. Let's keep it real. Any Yankee manager is in the hot seat. Got wonder why they brought Ausmus or Girardi is in the booth. Well, I mean, Girardi is a good analyst in my opinion, but if Brad Ausmus is the Yankees manager after Aaron Boone, I'm getting the nearest garbage can and throwing all of my organs up immediately. It's the 3rd year in a row where Boone has let the team fall off, and I will share a tweet that I posted. Dodgers heavily in on Crochet, Robert Jr. Can the Yankees get involved? This just happened. I've been talking about this trade for a while. Let's see. I know obviously Chef Jr. was talking about it, and that's the package he would do. But the X factor is putting in Spencer Jones, and that's not speculation. That's been proven. John Heyman has said it. Also, Judge needs to hold players accountable too on the offense and fielding side. Cole should be doing the same for relievers and starting pitchers. I will say this. Judge is a leader, but he's a teddy bear leader. That's just the way he is. Take it as a negative, take it as a positive. He's not really going to. The only possible accountability he held is when Marcus Stroman decided to scream at Gleyber Torres after his lackadaisical effort. Could the Yankees do a Mookie Betts like move and get rid of DJ? DJ cannot continue to be their everyday third base or everyday player at all. I think it's DFA at this point. That's where it's headed. DFA. You trade him for a scrap or At
this point, you're not gonna. At this point, he has like no value. So I mean,
you won't even get the international spending money or whatever they call it.
Because like
you would have to attach a prospect to him. You would literally have to give away value because a team knows there's no value in DJ LeMahieu other than losing money. And so that's negative value. So if you're going to make us assume negative value, which Trent Grisham, by the way, we brought in Trent Grisham in large part because it helped us bring it. We essentially were like, we'll give you a little lesser of a package, but we'll take Trent Grisham. Okay. So you've got to really give value away outside of that player. So if you want to trade DJ LeMahieu, that's fine, but that's coming at a price, huge price, not just money.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to trade for him straight up for anybody because who's gonna want that? Nobody.
Miss my 90s Yankees. I think a lot of people do. I wonder what the squirrel from the old Yankees team is doing. Maybe he's watching this live stream. Aaron Boone can drive the new Lamborghini, but when the Lamborghini starts having issues, he can't fix it. I think that's a solid point, honestly. But again, I always refer to game manager. He doesn't necessarily do like these great moves to win the game, but he will be the reason you lose the game because of a decision or lack of accountability. And I also urge the Yankees to start stealing bases again. But with that being said, we're going to wrap it up, and I will. And sometimes I do predictions, sometimes I don't, but I think we'll throw it around for predictions. Where do you think the Yankees will land at the end of the 2024 season? And I'm not talking necessarily division winners, division losers, but I'm talking: do they make the World Series? Are they in the championship series? Do they lose that? And if you want to, it's optional. Do you think the Yankees get any of the guys we talked about at the deadline? I will start with Chef.
I think they're going to get that Miami package done. I think Chisholm's on his way. I think Scott's on the way. I think that's the package because in general, they're low sellers. And that's what Miami does. That's the reason we got Giancarlo Stanton. I know people kind of assume that we went and got super aggressive for that trade. We essentially gave up nothing to get him. I think Miami kind of does another encore here with that Arias trade, and they kind of just flip us over some players. I know they've been in love with Gleyber Torres the last few years. Not sure why they'd want to acquire him part of a package in his final year after 4 years of trying to acquire him, but prediction is that we get that Miami deal done. It does make us a lot better. I won't lie to you guys. Chisholm is a name, but I will say this. He would still be our third best hitter, and that's bad. That's not good. So, yeah, I'm going to go with that Miami package. Is it enough? Probably not. We probably go into the ALDS, lose, or at best championship series and get folded. If the Yankees want to go win, they're going to have to make a huge splash. The Yankees need multiple bats. So one bat's not going to do it. Jazz Chisholm's not going to change the tide to a World Series championship team. It's going to be, but maybe I guess in their defense, maybe they're going to make that move and say that Dominguez needs to return. Like all of these different guys need to return to give us a chance to win a World Series. And I guess you can make that claim, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. What's up to Miz in the chat? What's going on, Miz? Luca, where will the Yankees end up? And will they trade for any of the guys we talked about?
I think they lose in the division series. I think they lose in 5. In terms of who the Yankees trade for, I don't think it's Mason Miller. Maybe Tanner Scott, but I think there's the bat they go after is Luis Rengifo.
Okay. All right. More speaking to Dylan's point, since we have him next, do people realize how much Stanton means to this lineup now? Jazz and Tanner to the Yankees, I'm okay as long as it's a fair trade. Yeah, no, I would agree. Dylan, your thoughts?
Yeah, as far as who they're gonna get at the deadline, I think Rengifo is the most realistic bat they're gonna get. I mean, I would love the Jazz and Tanner package. Actually, I would. I've been someone who's been favoring that for a bit, but I don't know how realistic it is that they're gonna be able to get both of them. I would love that. I don't know how realistic it is though. So if they can get both of them, great. But I think as far as a bat, they're gonna end up with Rengifo, which is not a bad thing, but it's definitely not like the big splash, and it's definitely not enough. As a fan, I would love to say that we're going to win the World Series, but we're not. I don't think this team, this roster, is a World Series roster right now as currently constructed, and I don't think making one simple move for like one bat or one reliever is enough. You have too many holes that you just simply cannot fix in one deadline, so I don't know if they're really going to be good enough to get to the World Series this year. I think as far as a playoff finish, if they get to the playoffs, I got to say that because it's not a guarantee, but I'd be very surprised if they didn't make the playoffs. I should make that clear, but obviously it's not a guarantee. If they make the postseason, though, I expect like a DS finish at best in the ALCS. But if they get that far and they deal with the Orioles, I think they're going to get punked I really do. I don't think they match up with the Orioles very well at all. I mean, we kind of saw just how bad we look against them just a few weeks ago when we played at Yankee Stadium against them. I know we just took a series from them, but we know Baltimore isn't going to continue to slide like that for forever, and they're going to be very aggressive at the deadline. So when they're all loaded up with players and they're really locked in, ready to go, I think they're just better than us. I think it's that simple. I think they're a lot better than us. I don't think we're good enough to beat them this year. Maybe if we run up our luck, we are, or maybe we won't even need to face them in the postseason if upsets happen. Who knows? Obviously, it's too much to predict because that's several months away from now. But as far as where this team is currently at right now, my expectations are low. I don't have high expectations, and that sucks because when we got Juan Soto, my expectations were high. I was like, oh, great. We got Soto, we got Verdugo, we got what we needed. We can make a World Series run. And as the season started out and seeing how it was playing out, I was like, oh man, the Orioles are the only team that's really in our way. We got this year. But this past month has made me realize there's just too many holes, too many. And like I said, you can't fix it all in one deadline. I really wish you could, but it's just not possible. You can't do it unless you flip the entire roster and do what the Cavs did in 2018. It's not going to happen. So that's my final thoughts on it.
Yeah, definitely. With Stan, the Yankees were scoring runs. He was a threat. Yeah, me and Gary were talking about this. Somebody could tell Cortez to shut the fuck up and win some games. Seriously, he sounds like a bitch with a mustache. Guy talks like he knows nothing about our history and expectation. He's happy just to be a Yankee. Won't be one for long. Don't get me started. Luis Robert and Michael
I don't think
Kopech
that guy
from
likes
White Sox.
Cortez.
Yeah, he's Mrs. favorite Yankees, Cortez. Judging by his stream of comments, Robert and Michael Kopech from the White Sox, Urshela Rosario for infield help, Carlos Estevez from the Angels. Bet on him, me guys. You'll see. Basically, Lou, what Cortez said on Twitter. Actually, you know what? Since we have a little bit of time, I'm gonna actually pull up what he said, depending on if he deleted it or not. Here we go. Everyone talks down about the Yankees, but they want to be us. It's a privilege to wear pinstripes. Every year we are in contention. I'm blessed to be able to compete for a playoff spot and always be contenders at the end. So I was not a big fan of that. I know a lot of people on Yankee Twitter were pom-pomming him. I know. I think I replied to that. I know Gary did, obviously, with a very good thing about the chicken buckets. But no more pom-poms, and just go out and win some games like Miz said. But we're going to close up shop here for the night. I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming out our first live stream in over a month. And of course, I'll have to thank my great panel. Dylan, his stuff is in the description. Gary, he does stuff with Jake Allenbogen on Yankees Unloaded. And of course, Luca does Knicks Cast, which is in the description. But we'll see when we're live again. Of course, Giants training camp is coming up and the trade deadline is coming up for the Yankees. So a lot of good content coming your way. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. I noticed a lot of new faces in here. I know I've been posting highlights and stuff. So if you're new, share it out to your friends. And also subscribe and follow these fine gentlemen down below. But with that being said, guys, we're going to close it out. Peace out. See you later. And stay cool. Have a great night.